Welcome back to CanHammer, everybody, your source for Nightvault from the Great White North. Tonight's episode, unboxing and review of Zarbag's Gitz. Welcome everybody to CanHammer, your source for Nightvault from the Great White North. Today I have the new warband Zarbag's Gitz. I'm going to be popping this open and we'll be looking at the models and also looking at the new cards. So looks like a very cool warband. I think it's going to be hard to play since it has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys. But really, it's 7 guys and 2 squigs because there are only 7 starting spaces on every board. So it's really 7 guys, but you get 2 extra squigs. Anyway, let's crack it open. Alright, so it's kind of a pukey yellow color. Let's have a look. So there's 2 sprues, that hard plastic that we've gotten used to for the push fit, and looks like very cool model, so I'll have to put that together at some point. But very cool. I like this kind of squig head here. It's pretty cool and very nice. We'll have to pop those together, but you know, let's just have a look at the cards. Let's get right into the good stuff. Alright, this is a new thing, I think. I don't remember this in any other warband, but there's a little kind of cover card with the box art on it, and on the back, oh, and that's the new symbol for this warband, this little bad moon, and then a little sort of fluff card. That's pretty cool. Very cool. Anyway, still going in the garbage, probably. Alright, let's look at these guys. So let's look at the boss first. Here we go, Zarbag. So Zarbag is here. This is also a new thing that they use the painted model in this picture versus the just bare plastic, which is cool. So here's Zarbag. He's a level 2 wizard. He has an attack that is 3 swords, 2 damage, so kind of like the Briar Queen. He moves 3, 2 dodge, and only 3 health, so pretty dangly. And his inspiration is if you have 3 or more glory. So we probably, hopefully, inspire him by turn 2 or at the end of turn 1. And then he has this reaction, this scurry rule, which we're going to see amongst the warband. After a friendly fighter other than a squig makes a move action, if that move began in an adjacent hex, this fighter makes a move action. They cannot do this if they have any move or charge tokens. So this is kind of allowing this warband to sort of double move if they started off close to each other, which is pretty cool. When he inspires, he gains cleave and an extra move, and that's it. So pretty easy to kill, but a cool little card. Let's see, we haven't figured out who are the Dangle Bros yet, so let's just I think we'll be able to figure that out. So this is Snirk Sourtongue, and this is a guy with the whip. He has, after an activation, this fighter becomes inspired. Interesting. So, basically, this guy is the fanatic, I think, with the ball and chain, 1 sword, but 3 damage. And he inspires after, right at the beginning of the game, I guess, the very first activation you make, he's going to inspire. He starts off only moving 2, 1 dodge, 3 health, so very easy to kill. And then, okay. So when he's inspired, he cannot move. He gets 3 dodge, and he cannot make a move, charge, or attack action, and cannot go or be on guard. So he can't do anything, but he has this. Take this action, scatter 4 from his hex, and push Sourtongue 3 hexes along the chain. If he would be pushed into an occupied hex Before he is pushed, the fighter in that hex suffers 1 damage, and you push that fighter 1 hex. This push must take that fighter further away from Sour Tongue. If Sour Tongue will be pushed into a blocked or incomplete hex, or into a hex with a fighter that cannot be pushed further away from Sour Tongue, do not push him any further, and he suffers 1 damage, as does the fighter that cannot be pushed. Okay, so he basically turns into an out of control little ball that just pushes people and does 1 damage each time. Yeah, I'm not even sure why he has this profile, because he's never going to be able to use it. Funny. Okay, interesting card. Snurk. All right, who we got? We got the three archers here are your Dangle Bros, I think. So we got Dibs, Redcap, and Stickit. And they all have bows with 3 range, 2 swords, and 1 damage, so very weak. They all inspire at 3 or more glory points, and they can all scurry. And then when they get inspired, they go up to 4 move and 2 dodge, from 3 move and 1 dodge, similar to the Ghost. But they only have 2 health, so these guys are definitely your Dangle Bros. Alright. Then we have Progdanetter. He's got a barbed net that does 2 hammers, only 1 damage. He inspires the same, and he has scurry as well. 3 move, 1 dodge. If this attack action is successful with the barbed net, reduce the dice characteristics of the target's attack action by 1 in the next activation. So that's pretty cool, but then you could always activate someone else. So I'm not sure how good that would be, but and it's only range 1, so that literally means this guy's dead the next turn. So okay, so there we go. And when he activates, he gets 3 hammers, so a little bit more reliable, and does the same. Oh no, now this reduces the dice characteristics of the attack action by 2. Not a lot of things have 3 dice, so maybe not that much better. But he moves extra and gets 2 dodge, 2 health, so easy to kill. Yeah, all these guys are easy to kill. I don't know what else to expect. Alright, so the Squig Herder, Drizgit. So he has a Squig brand, 2 hammers, 2 damage. That's probably the most reliable damage you have. He inspires after 3 glory. He has a shield, I guess because he's got this armor on. He moves 3 and has 3 health. This fighter and up to 2 adjacent friendly squigs each make a move action. A fighter cannot take this action or move in this way if they have move or charge tokens. So every time he moves, well, you can move your squigs with him. And when he inspires, he goes up to 3 hammers, 2 damage, so pretty good for move, and the same otherwise. So he's actually one of your bigger damage dealers, and you have got his 2 squigs. So these squigs, Gobbalook and Bone Cracker, they each have 1 hex, 2 hammer, 2 damage, so pretty good damage. And they inspire when the herder is taken out of action. They each move 3 and 1 dodge and only 2 health. And their rule is, do not place this fighter normally. When you set up Drizgit, you place this fighter in your territory as close as possible to Drizgit on a hex other than a starting lethal hex or blocked hex. So they cannot take up starting hex. This fighter cannot be given attack action upgrades and cannot hold objectives. And when they inspire, they cannot be given attack action or hold objection. When they inspire, they go up to 3 hammer, 2 damage, and cleave with 2 dodge. Right. So that's an interesting dynamic. So you can move these separately if you want, but more than likely you move him and you move these 2 with him as a group, and then they're doing pretty decent damage to 3 of these guys and giving each other support. And then if you're the opponent, you try and kill the squigs first. But if you, and they're, these are basically easy glory. And then if you kill him though, without killing the squigs, and I'm not sure why you would do that strategically, but then you would have in your face some cleaving 3 hammer, 2 damage squigs. So there we go. Okay, very interesting warband. Let's see what they got card wise. So here we have, these are the faction specific ones. Call that a win. Score this in the 3rd end phase if there are 5 or more surviving friendly fighters. Might be hard to do these days for 2. Dank Haven. Score this in the 3rd end phase if there are no enemy fighters in your territory. Again, I think that's hard to do. The only thing I gotta say though is if you set all these guys up, if you set your whole warband up next to each other, which you can't really do on the first on the deployment, but after that you could, then you can move them all up in one activation with Scurry, which is pretty cool. Right, because they just trigger each other as long as they're all in adjacent hexes. So kind of a one-time thing probably, but that's interesting. Okay, Flash Finale. Score this immediately if an enemy fighter is taken out of action by a spell. I wish I had that. That's a cool card. Infestation. Score this if you hold every objective. So that's a faction specific one. Mad Scurry. Score this in an end phase if at least 5 of your surviving fighters made a move action. You need 5 of them to do it. But with Scurry, you could easily score this in one action for 2 glory. Too bad it's not a score immediately. That would make it way too good. Malicious Kill. Score this immediately if your warband takes an enemy fighter with 2 or more upgrades out of action. Depends on your enemy, unfortunately. Obliterated. Score this immediately if a friendly Snurk Sour Tongue is inspired and takes an enemy fighter out of action. He's the fanatic. Well, he's going to be inspired, and if you kill somebody, you score immediately for 2 glory. I like that card. Scrag. Score immediately if an enemy fighter is taken out of action while adjacent to 3 or more friendly fighters. That's probably doable. I wish I had that card for Briar Queen. Vicious Killer. Score this in an end phase if 2 or more friendly fighters made successful attack actions that targeted the same fighter and that fighter was taken out of action in the preceding action phase. That's a lot of things you have to do for 1 glory. Alright, that's all the faction specific objectives. Let's see what I can put into my deck. Arcane Torrent. Score this immediately if a friendly fighter successfully casts a spell and there are 2 or more crits, which means you would take a damage for paraling. So that's probably not good. The chances of that are pretty low. Yes, that's like rolling boxcars basically, or snake eyes, so yeah, not good. Catching Up. Score this in an end phase if you have fewer glory points than an opponent. That's interesting. And that just gives you a boost of 1. Interesting. Extreme Flank. Score this in an end phase if there is a friendly fighter on an edge hex and another friendly fighter on an edge hex on the opposite edge of the battlefield to the first fighter. When there is more than one opposite edge, it must be the furthest of these edges for 2 glory. I think that's pretty easy to do. You set up your 2 Dangle Bros with Varclavs. That might be an easy one to score for 2 glory. I like that one. Interdiction. Score this in an end phase if your warband took an enemy wizard out of action. Better against certain warbands than others, obviously. Keep them guessing. Score this in an end phase if your warband made at least 4 different actions from the following list in the preceding phase. Move other than as part of a charge. Attack other than as part of a charge. Charge. Guard. Another action on a fighter card. For 2 glory. I don't know. Seems like you have to do a lot of various things. I don't like that one. Magical Void. Score this in an end phase if an opponent's warband attempted to cast at least 1 spell and did not successfully cast any. Again, I wouldn't bank on my opponent. Master of Terrain. Score this immediately if an enemy fighter is taken out of action by a lethal hex. That might be an interesting one for me to try because I like to use lethal hex and push people into lethal hexes for the final damage. I've done that a couple of times already, so that might be something worth considering. Nowhere to Go. Score this immediately if each hex adjacent to an enemy fighter is either occupied, blocked, or lethal. That has interesting potential as well. Score this immediately if each hex adjacent to an enemy fighter is either occupied, blocked, or lethal. Okay, so you don't have to take them out. You just have to move guys around them. That's interesting. A score immediately. Solid Gain. Score this in an end phase if you gained at least 3 glory. So it's a win more card. Sorceress Scouring. Score this immediately if your warband takes an enemy fighter out of action with a spell. Probably hard to do. With our bare hands for 3 glory. Score this in the third end phase if there are at least 3 surviving friendly fighters and none of them has an upgrade. Probably not for me. And that's it. Okay, so I think I might try and put these into my deck. This one, because that's naturally what my deck is trying to do, surround people and get inspired. This one, using lethal hexes to take people out. And extreme flank. Score this in an end phase if there's a friendly fighter on each hex, and that's for 2 glory. Easy to do that with Varclavs. So, very interesting cards. Alright, let's look at some ploys for Zarbags. Curse of the Bad Moon. A 2-swirl gambit spell. If the spell is cast, choose a hex within 4 hexes of the caster. Any fighter in that hex or any hex adjacent to it suffers 1 damage. That's pretty cool. 2 swirls. What's 2 swirls? So the swirls is, there's 2 swirls on each one and a crit. So that's a 4-up basically. So you have to roll 2 4-ups. Fungal Blessing. Reaction. Play this after an enemy fighter's attack action that takes an adjacent friendly fighter out of action. So this is just that extra damage one. Everyone's got one. Jealous Hex. 1 swirl. If the spell is cast, choose a fighter that has the highest wounds characteristic on the battlefield. That fighter has -1 wounds to a minimum of 1. The spell persists. So that's interesting. A little -1 wound hex. Could come in handy. 50% chance of getting it off. And there's no range. So any fighter, so I really do like that spell actually. Little Wah, +1 dice to the first attack action made by a friendly fighter. Madcap Mushroom, innate, oh look at that. Innate Lightning and Swirl. For the next spell your warband attempts to cast, the fighter casting the spell suffers 1 damage if there are any crits and in that casting roll rather than 2 or more. Interesting. Innate. That's a good innate though, but it's not persistent. Make some noise. Choose up to 2 friendly squigs and push each of them up to 2 hexes. That's a pretty good card. I would like that. Horrible Leer. Well, there's a lot of spells, and they only have 1 caster. Yeah, Zarbag is the only caster, so he's got a lot of spells here. Gambit spell, 1 swirl. If the spell is cast, push each enemy fighter adjacent to the caster 1 hex. That's not good. You don't want everyone surrounding Zarbag. Sneaky Stabbin', another spell for 2 lightnings. If the spell is cast, +1 dice and cleave to the first attack action with a range of 1 or 2. Not too bad. That's pretty good. Sneaky Step. Choose a friendly fighter and push them 1 hex. There's your side step. Stab him in the knee. If the first attack action in the next activation, has a range 1 or 2, has +1 damage for each supporting fighter. That's pretty nice with the swarm. I wish I had that card. And okay, some good spells there. Let's look at the generic stuff, see if we get more spells. As I predicted, there's a lot more spells coming now in these warbands, so it's going to become more important to think about maybe running some dispels. Abyssoth's Unmaking. Gambit spell, 1 lightning. If the spell is cast, choose an objective token within 4 hexes and remove it from the battlefield. Okay, interesting. Arcane Shield, 2 swirls. If the spell is cast, reduce all damage suffered by the caster by 1. This spell persists. There you go, that's pretty good. Worth considering. Encroaching Shadow. Choose an enemy fighter in an edge hex. They suffer 1 damage. Interesting card. Healing Pulse. 1 swirl. If the spell is cast, choose a friendly fighter within 4 hexes. Remove 1 wound token from that fighter's card at the beginning of each round. Before the first activation. This spell persists. Okay, so it's a heal over time. It's a hot. I don't really like that. Infinite Riches. 2 lightning gambit spell. If this spell is cast, choose 1 upgrade from your power discard pile and add it to your hand. Okay. Don't like. Still have to cast it. It would be cool if it cast it and put it right on, but you still have to cast it. Spend the glory. So, Levitation, Gambit, 1 lightning. If the spell is cast, the caster treats lethal hexes as normal hexes. This spell persists. Okay, I don't need that because I already do that. Mirror move, reaction. Play this after an opponent pushes a fighter. Yeah, choose a different fighter and push them the same number of hexes. Interesting. Pushes any fighter, your fighter or their own fighter. It's like a free, it's a reaction and it's a push. I kind of like this because I have objectives that need me to play reactions, and this gives me mobility. One step ahead. You can only play this card in the final power step of a round. Choose an opponent and name an objective, then roll an attack dice. On a roll 50% chance the opponent cannot score that objective in the subsequent end phase. Don't like. Limited use, you have to have the card at the right time, and there's only 50% chance of working. Pit Trap, reaction. Play this after an attack action that drives an enemy fighter back. They suffer 1 damage. It's another trap, basically. It's exactly the same, I believe. Interesting. 2 traps. Sphere of Shyish for 1 lightning. If this spell is cast, choose an enemy fighter within 3 hexes of the caster. Wound tokens cannot be removed from that fighter's card. Okay, and that's it. Let's look at some upgrades for Zarbag. Endless Whirl. This goes on the Fanatic. Action. Each adjacent fighter suffers 1 damage. Use this action only if this fighter is inspired. Well, he will be inspired because he inspires right away, and it basically turns you into an AoE instead of doing your crazy whirly whirl. So there might be some play in that. Extra bouncy. To be honest, I'm not sure if it's worth putting upgrades on hardly any of these guys because they're so easy to kill. Extra bouncy. When this fighter makes a move or charge, this goes on one of the squigs. They can move through other fighters, but their move, okay, it gives them the ghosties. Fiery Brand goes on Drizgit, who's the herder. On a critical hit, this fighter's action with a range of 1 of +1 damage, which is pretty good because he does pretty decent damage. Here's one that gives him +1 defense. It's pretty good because he already has 1 shield. Lurker, reaction. After a fighter is pushed a number of hexes, if that fighter was adjacent to this fighter before the push this fighter up the same number of hexes. This fighter must end the push adjacent. So, yeah, I don't really like that one. Nasty Stabber. This is a 2-hammer, 2 damage attack. This attack action is +2 dice if a friendly prog is supporting. Okay, situational. Ravenous, +1 damage to this fighter's attack action. This is for the squigs with a range of 1, +1 damage. It's pretty good, 3 damage squigs. Sniffer Spite. This is for Zarbag. If this fighter is in enemy territory in the 3rd end phase, gain 1 glory. Vindictive Glare. Okay, what does this mean? Oh, so this is an upgrade that gives them a spell with 3 range, 1 lightning, 1 damage. On a critical hit, this attack action has +1 damage. Okay, interesting. That's the first spell upgrade we've seen. Volley Caller. This is for your Dangle Bros. After this fighter makes the Grot Bow attack action, an adjacent friendly fighter makes their Grot Bow. And that's it. Alright, here's the generic ones. Chain Spite. Scatter 3 from this fighter's hex. Choose 1 fighter standing in a hex in the chain. They suffer a damage. For an upgrade, I don't like that. Feinway Crystal. When this fighter makes a move action, do not move normally. Instead, place them on any objective token, then discard this card. I do like that. It costs you glory, though, to move anywhere you like onto an objective. Interesting. Fighter's Ferocity. If you score a critical hit when making an attack action with this fighter, do +1 damage. Low Cunning. Fighter supported by... I think there's better cards like Concealed Weapon. Low Cunning. Fighters supported by this fighter have +1 damage on their attack actions. Again, requires support. Mutating Maul. 2-hammer, 2 damage Maul. When a fighter makes this attack action, choose Cleave or Knockback. Nullstone Axe. 2-hammer, 2 damage axe. Reroll 1 dice if it's against a wizard. And 3 range, 2-hammer, 1 damage. After you use it, discard it. Reroll 1 dice if it's attacking a wizard. Parrying Blade. 2 hammers, 1 damage during an attack action that targets this fighter and fails. This fighter cannot be pushed back. Potion of Rage reaction. During this fighter's attack action, before any dice roll, discard this card. The attack action is +2 dice until the action is resolved. Spiteful Charm reaction. After an enemy fighter's attack action that damages this fighter, discard this card. Choose one of the enemy fighter's upgrades and discard that. Tome of Incantations. Cataphragne's Tome. Restricted to a wizard. Each time this fighter attempts to cast a spell, after the casting roll, you can change one of the symbols rolled to a lightning. Interesting. So obviously you would only run that if you have wizard and if you need lightning. So this is probably better on like the Stormcast right now. Okay. So, interesting set, interesting warband. I think it's going to be pretty hard to play because you have so many options, like all these large number warbands. Interesting mechanism with the scurry. I like increasing number of spells. We've seen the first Cataphragne's Tome, so a pretty interesting expansion. So, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked that quick unboxing and review of Zarbag's Gitz, and we'll be coming back soon with the Eyes of the Nine, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and consider supporting the channel by subscribing here and by supporting us on Patreon. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.